Hello, and welcome back to Rostrap Dive. My name is Eranos12, and let's recap for a minute. Last week, we went over, what was it? Snack bar, right? Well, today we're doing some more UI, pseudo-instance based UI tutorials, and this time it will be selection controller. Now, before we get in there, there's something in my game I want to show you. It's actually a real-world application of selection controller based items or, modules or whatever. Anyways, let's just see how it works. So as you can see here, I'm able to open this up, but if you look there, if you look here, that is a radio, as in radio button. So what is a radio button? Well, I'm about to show you, or tell you, rather. So in order to do that, first we're going to need a local script, because this UI, it's considered that you should use it on the client, not the server, because even though it could be replicated, well, most likely it isn't replicated, but still, if it was replicated, you'd know, because it would say replicated pseudo-instance in the code files, but in this case it's not. So the reason why you would need a thing like this is because of that. I'm going to close out this notification. Anyways, okay, I think we need to go to Rostrap UI, then we're going to go to radio. So there's another photo I want to show you before we get into that, and that would be most likely to my backup hard drive that I got for my birthday. So I'm going to find that. Yeah, I'm just going to add in a image, rather, not a media source. Sorry about that. What you just saw was part of a media source. So here it is. This is what I had to replicate. And as you can see here, these are all radio buttons. This is a checkbox, would be a checkbox, but that is a replicate, not a replicated pseudo instance, but rather a radio button. So that's what I was trying to make. So here we have radio. So the first thing we're going to notice is that it is using only global z-index behavior. So that means I would have to literally add in some things, or actually change some things up regarding the radio button so that it could perhaps show up properly on screen, because I did have some issues with that. Also, this inherits from pseudo-instance and selection controller. Now I want to show you what selection controller really is, because the documentation does not show you that, unfortunately. So let's look into it. If we go down here, you'll see we have button, which is what you click to change selection. We have the template, which is basically the the template in which you put it in, or the UI rather. We have the click rippler and the hover rippler, kind of self-explanatory. The click rippler is basically the sorry about that, my mouth's getting dry. But the click rippler is basically the rippler that appears when you click on the selection, and then the hover is for hovering over the selection. So now we also have an abstract method. This isn't really abstract that much, but the method set checked is abstract here. Whenever you see a 0, I forgot to mention this in the other tutorial, the set checked is 0. Then you have all this. The initialization function, which is the constructor, and as you can see you have self.button, that's the button. You have the click rippler, and you also have the hover rippler. They work hand in hand. Now, this is an efficient way to actually do it, or implement it, because here's the problem with, doing this with like mouse moved, or even mouse hover, mouse enter, mouse exit. Like, none of that matters. Because here's the problem. If you were to do mouse movement using the other constructor, it wouldn't necessarily work. I'm being serious right now. It would not work. So, yeah. It wouldn't work because of the fact, yeah, it would work, but it just wouldn't be efficient. It would be an old API. If you use mouse enter, mouse exit or leave, and then if you try to do the click, mouse button one click is also old. It doesn't cover like when you try to click it using a gamepad. So it's another big problem. We also have primary color, which is a good thing to have. It's a standard amongst the Rostrap UI libraries. But anyways, as you can see here, we have checked, self-explanatory in terms of if it's selected or not. Disabled means you cannot use it. Indeterminate basically means that it's kind of on the fence. What I mean by that is that it's not selected, but it's also not unselected. It's in the middle. Indeterminate. So, there you have it. Next, we're going to move to radio. Now, the radio is what we're going to cover. The first control that's derived from this class we're going to cover. Because radio is a very interesting thing. Now, it's a button. Uses anchor point, name, parent size, position, layout, order, and all that other stuff. But those are wrap properties of the button itself. Now there's internals too, such as inner circle, which is basically the circle that appears when you check the image, or uncheck it, it will disappear in that case. And then you have ripple check finish. That's an internal private method. That also happens to have a tween status parameter. Well, actually, no, forget I said that. Ripple check finish is a private method, like I said before. It uses tween status, which means it must be used with the tweening system that's inside of this package, or Rostrap framework, which is pretty good in some cases and not so good in others. Like with the recoil in my game, it's not really good with that because it can extend the time and then it won't go down, so I had to like revert it back to what it used to be before this was implemented. So go figure. Anyways, we have tween status dot completed. It checks to see if that, and then basically it will check the image, and then the inner circle will be invisible. Now set color and transparency is self-explanatory. Although there is one mistake here, you shouldn't use class names like this, because yeah, it's more specific, but what if there's a conflict? Then you got a problem. Checked is also there. It's, the boolean. Now, it will assign the this is a signature assignment, which means it's a function for assigning properties, yeah, values of properties, but it uses a certain type. Just like type.boolean is the same thing, but without the custom behavior. So if checked, checks if it's checked, it will set the transparency and color and the image. Otherwise, it will set it to a theme-based image when not checked, and the unchecked image. Z-index basically sets the Z-index. Set check is implemented here as well. And as you can see, it checks to see if it's disabled. If not disabled, then it will continue. If it is disabled, it will stop. And basically, wow, I've never seen that before. The change part, where it's like double equal operators. Like, this is like something I've never seen before in my years of developing on Roblox. If it's changed, then the button is sets up the variables, then it sets the inner circle's image color to the primary color, meaning it's, you know, checked or not checked. I guess it's kind of hard to differentiate the two because of the change thing that I've never seen before, and it will make it visible. Now if it is checked, then here's the deal. It will set the color and transparency to the primary color, of course, and then it will tween the sides of the inner circle and the image transparency. Makes it better, honestly. And then the rest is history, I guess. It'll set it to the dark or light theme that you chose for when it's not checked. And then it will fire the event. Whenever you see this, you should check this. Not that. This. Sorry. Events, you define them as a string, like I said before in the SelectionController tutorial. And basically the rest is history. And then we have the init function or init constructor. Basically the object is set, and then the inner circle is set. You know, the rest is, you know, put into the janitor so that when the thing is destructed, or the object is destructed, it will just clean that all away. You won't have to worry about it causing performance issues. So now I'm going to read you the documentation for radio, the rest, just so we can see. So set check is there, and in radio group they use this extensively. So keep that in mind. Another thing, wrap properties is basically like when you take an instance inside of the object and you put properties on the top level of the pseudo instance so that they can be used to set them quickly without having to make a property in the properties table. So it's much more efficient that way. And then you have all the properties I mentioned from the overview of the script. And now we're going to see exactly how you would use this. Well, if I was going to show you this, right, I will go to radio group and show you this. So here's how I would do this. First of all, we need to go to the main script, copy this, because you're going to need that in order to be able to work with it. So local radio, in fact I'm going to put this in a starter GUI so that you can see it. So now I'm going to find the rest of these choices. Now I am going to paste them in, the demo code in, to show you what this does. But I'm going to show you how I did it as well. So basically this is the demo code. And yeah. This is the demo code for the radio group. And the radio group, well, here's what we got. It's basically a collection of radio objects. So the radio objects, you can add these in. And you can even get selection, and if you want, I have a modded script in which you can set selection. Now, all it takes is just doing the opposite of getting it, but if you want to set it, you can do it as well. So you have this, stoplight kind of thing. But mine is different because of the functionality that I had to add and also the way it's used. Mine is yellow on black on yellow. This is red on black, yellow on black, and green on black. The reason why I had to do the black on yellow is because of the theme of the game, but you can use any color you want. But mainly, if you want the channels thing, if you were to do something like I did, to actually work in that sense, you would first of all need a page layout to, scroll through the channels, if there's more than 3 channels. And second of all, you would need a radio group alongside a radio pseudo-instance alongside a label. That's how I did it. So the next thing you would notice is that there's a ripple effect. Oh, that's normal. And as you can see here, when you hover over it, there's basically a ripple effect there. It's very interesting, if you ask me, how this was done. Now, the next thing that I'm going to talk about is basically the event that makes it all happen. So basically, what do we have in the console? As you can see here, they're printing out selections. What I did with my selection event, or connection, is I used it to change the channel. Took the name, found it in the index or wherever it was, changed the channel to and from. So that works. Okay, let's move on to checkbox. Now, checkbox I did use before. Not as much, but I used it in the settings of my game. So it's a pseudo instance. Just like radio, same thing happens with the global Z index behavior. But the difference is this can actually be used to, select multiple items. So that means if you were to use a checkbox group, which I could make, but it's not in the Rostrap UI collection of libraries. This I'll probably make in a future video, but not now. Now the checkbox, you set checked, just like the radio, except this, if it wasn't a checkbox group, you'd have multiple selections, which means you would definitely have a curly brace-like type, or in other words, a table. And then you have the wrap properties, which is the same, but then you have here some new properties. Indeterminate, checked, disabled, primary color 3, theme. Well, indeterminate is basically if the checkbox is in the middle, meaning it's not checked, it's not unchecked. Checked is the opposite of indeterminate. It's more like you checked it, you want it. Disabled means that you can't really do anything to it, because you can't make it indeterminate, you can't check or uncheck it because it's disabled. Now, primary color 3 is the color 3 of the check. And theme is dark or light when not checked. primary color only happens when it's checked, or when you click it and it shows up with a check. And then theme is the opposite. The same thing goes for the radio button as well. Now, unchecked is the same thing as a radio, you know. Now, I am going to show you how this would work. Or how demonstrate how this works using code that I found on the site. Now, someday I will do a, like I said, checkbox thing, but other than that, we're good. So, it's also 2:15, so it's going to be kind of hard to, you know. And as you can see here, it checks itself, prints out the whether it's checked or unchecked. So false, true, false, true, false, checked, unchecked. Can't really make it indeterminate.